if there was ever a time for us to really put up a fight, to defend the most vulnerable, and I don't just mean the unborn, I mean all of those who are vulnerable in our society, the elderly, the disabled, anyone who is marginalized, it is now. I mean, life is just, it's so precious and it's so incredibly fragile, and it can be over like that. And that's exactly what I witnessed in 2009, participating in an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure. Most of you probably know my story. I can talk to you about the abortion clinic imposing abortion quotas. Well, some of you are looking like you don't know what I'm talking about, so okay, I'll just go ahead and say, in 2009, things had started changing for me. In 2009, we were building the largest, it's operating now, the largest abortion facility in the Western Hemisphere in Houston, Texas, and I had an office in that building that was going to be opened, and I found out in January that we were going to be performing abortions in the third trimester. And that was a problem for me because of my strict morals. But that was a problem for me because I believed that, you know, if a baby could survive on its own outside of the womb, then certainly that was not okay to take its life. It was viability for me. And one day, I was reading a very scientific article in People magazine, and I learned about this baby who stopped growing at 20 weeks and 6 days, and she was born and she was healthy, and now she's like 12 years old, or I don't know. But anyway, and I thought, okay, well, now I've got to move my viability line back, right? Because it was at 24 weeks, and now it's at 20 weeks and 6 days. And in January, they announced to us we were going to be doing abortions in the third trimester, and that was problematic for me. And I think that was the first time I ever came home. I came home from that meeting. I think it was the first time I ever looked at my husband and said, I'm not sure that I'm going to be retiring with Planned Parenthood, because that was my goal. That's what I wanted. And you know what they called those of us that were on the retirement plan? Lifers. They probably changed the name now, but anyway. So that's what I thought I was going to do, and then April of 2009, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year for 2008, and that was really exciting for me. I know you're all very proud of me, thank you. And I got to go to their annual fundraiser, and I got to sit at the table with Hillary Clinton. Don't be jealous. And we had a very intimate conversation, me, Hillary, and 10 Secret Servicemen, and so that was good. So, you know, then I was kind of like, all right, well, you know, I was disappointed in January to find out we were going to be doing third trimester abortion, but okay, this was fun, you know, and so maybe I can just keep it up. You know, I can just keep doing this. And then August of 2009, I had a meeting with my supervisor, and we were going over my budget for the upcoming fiscal year, and she told me that that they were imposing an abortion clinic quota, and by the way, we were going to be expected to double the amount of abortions that we had provided the previous year. And that didn't make sense to me because at Planned Parenthood, we are about preventing the need for abortion. We are about reducing the number of abortions. So why in the world would we be doubling this abortion quota? It doesn't make any sense. So I said something to my supervisor, and she looked at me and she laughed. And she said, why would we reduce the abortion number, Abby? That's how we make our money. And I thought, well, okay, this is an interesting turn of events for me. I don't know where I'm going to go from here, but I've been thinking about it for about a month, and September of 2009, we had a visiting physician come in from out of town, and he had a private practice abortion facility in Austin. And he was explaining to me one time at the clinic that inside of his own private practice abortion facility that he used an ultrasound because he was explaining, shockingly enough, that it's actually safer if a doctor can see what he's doing while he's performing surgery. And I'd never thought about this. I just want to make it clear, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not even a medical assistant. I have no medical authority or education. I'm a licensed therapist. So if you're having a crummy day, we can talk about it, but if you need any sort of medical procedure, I'm really not your gal. But inside of the abortion industry, they don't care. You just have to be willing and sit through an in-house training session, and then they set you loose to perform invasive medical procedures on women. And I had gone through that training. So the only thing I knew about abortion was what Planned Parenthood had told me. I only knew their protocols. Me, as a non-medical staff person and the director of that clinic, supervised doctors. I supervised nurses. It doesn't even make sense. But, you know, they don't care about you being medically certified. They just need you to follow a protocol. And really, if you are medically certified and you're running a clinic, you may start having questions, and they don't want that. Just do what you're told, read the protocol, follow the procedure. And so I didn't even know that they did abortions using ultrasound guidance. That was totally new to me. He told me that, you know, Planned Parenthood didn't do it because it takes a little bit of extra time when you're using an ultrasound during the abortion. Our goal at Planned Parenthood was to get a woman on the table and off the table in 5 minutes. And so to introduce an ultrasound during that would take an extra, 3 to 5 minutes. And, we were trying to do 30 to 50 abortions a day. So, you just don't have that extra 3 to 5 minutes per patient. But this doctor told me that it would be interesting for me to see it. It would be a good learning opportunity, educational opportunity for me. And so he said if time permitted that he would show me what this looked like. And that time did come, and I was asked to come into the room. And my job during the abortion was to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's abdomen so the doctor could, in his words, visualize his target. Again, not medically certified, but I'm doing an ultrasound. I had done them lots of times. So doing an ultrasound, we do the measurement, 13 weeks gestation. Now at 13 weeks, are there arms and legs? Yes. Fingers and toes? Yes. Heartbeat? Yes. Brain waves? Yes. Internal organs? Yes. Yeah, everything's there. Outside the womb, the baby's about this big. And we can even tell if it's a boy or a girl at that point. Now, I knew that. I knew what the aftermath of abortion looked like because I had been a POC technician. What does POC stand for? Products of conception. You guys are so smart. What is that? That's a baby, right? You can say baby inside of the abortion clinic, so we said POC or POC, or the staff was feeling funny. They said it stood for pieces of children. And inside of every abortion clinic across the country, there is someone tasked to be the POC technician. And our job is to take everything that's suctioned out of the uterus, dump it into a glass baking dish, reassemble the parts to ensure that we got everything during the abortion. I did that. I can't really explain to you how I was able to do that job and not be bothered. I mean, I have no explanation for it except to say that when you are living in that sort of sin, when you are experiencing that sort of evil, see, the evil of abortion, it's actually very tangible. See, I could see that evil when I piece those parts back together, right? I could feel it when I would manipulate the parts of those babies. abortion has a very distinct smell. I could smell it. And when evil that real infiltrates your heart and your head, the only thing I can say is that it can literally blind you to the truth that's right in front of you. And so I was standing there looking at the ultrasound and feeling a little nervous because I didn't know what I was going to see, but I knew one thing was for sure, and that was that this baby, this fetus, whatever, was not going to feel anything. Now, how did I know that? Because Planned Parenthood sent me a memo about it, and the memo was entitled Answers to Tough Questions. The most frequently asked question I got from women seeking an abortion was, will my baby feel this? And Planned Parenthood knew that we had to have a very clever answer. And our answer was no, the fetus has no sensory development or does not feel anything for 28 weeks. Now, do you believe that? No. Well, I did. I knew better. I knew it was a lie. I mean, I had to believe the lie because the truth was really inconvenient for me. You know why 28 weeks? Because Planned Parenthood doesn't do abortions past 28 weeks. They just picked a number that would be financially smart for them. And so I was standing there, I was reminding myself, I was reciting the scripted answer over and over again in my head, and I watched as the cannula, the suction tube, the suction wasn't turned on yet, I watched it go into the woman's uterus, and I watched it go right up next to the side of this little boy, and as it touched his side, he jumped. And he began flailing his arms and legs as if he was trying to move away from the abortion instrument, but there was nowhere for him to go. And the doctor asked the technician to turn on the suction machine, and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And the suction was turned on, and I guess people think that what I saw next was the worst part, and it was bad. What I saw next was bad. I saw pieces of this child being suctioned into the tube one at a time. And you know how on an X-ray, bones are white? You know, like cartilage is white on an X-ray? Well, the very last thing I saw on that ultrasound screen was this little white, perfectly formed backbone. And I saw it twirling around inside the mother's womb, and then it finally went into the tube, and the screen was just black. And I knew that the abortion was complete. Abortion is the only procedure I can think of where its success is determined by taking the life of another person. And that was bad. All of that was bad. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that when I had the opportunity to intervene, I just stood there and I did nothing. I mean, I remember wanting to sit this woman up and say, look what is happening to your baby. But I didn't. I just stood there and I watched. It took me a week to leave. I can assure you I did not want to leave my job at Planned Parenthood. I tried really hard to make what I had seen okay in my mind. I made a lot of money at Planned Parenthood. My husband was a special ed teacher. And I thought, how are we going to survive? We're living this lifestyle, right? We were enjoying this lifestyle because of the money that I received from Planned Parenthood. I thought, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? I did not want to leave. But finally, on a Monday morning, I went to work, and I felt physically ill to be there. I just felt nauseous to even drive into work, and I was sitting at my desk, and I was praying, probably really for the first time in 8 years. I mean, don't get me wrong, I went to church every Sunday that I worked inside of Planned Parenthood, but I wasn't really talking to God because I didn't want to hear what He had to say. So I didn't really have a communication with God. But it looked great for us in the pro-choice movement if we had people who proclaimed to be Christians and went to church. So that's why I kept going. But I remember I was praying probably for the first time in a long time. And I sat there and I was just praying, like, God, give me somebody to go to. I don't know who to talk to about this. My parents were on vacation, and my mom is not the best in crisis situations. So I didn't want to deal with that. And so I thought, what am I going to do? And I kept feeling like God was telling me to go and talk to these crazy anti-choicers who were outside of my clinic. And I was like, no. Give me somebody else. Anybody. For 8 years of my life, those people had stood outside of my clinic. And they had lovingly called out to me all that time. And they had always told me, Abby, if you ever want to leave, we'll help you. And I never thought I'd take them up on it. But that Monday, I knew I couldn't stay there anymore. I was watching women walk out of our clinic with little brown bags, and I knew that they were going home to do the abortion pill. And I thought, well, I'm still here. I'm still doing it. I said I didn't want to do it anymore. I'm still here. So I got in my car, and I ran out the back door. I got in my car, and I could have walked to their office, but because it was conveniently located next door. But I thought that would look suspicious, so I got in my car and drove the 50 yards and gave them a call. And I said, hi, I'm outside in your parking lot, and I would like to know if you have a back entrance. And they said, can you hold, please? And anyway, they finally got back on the phone, and they let me in, and it was so funny. It was like a movie. They opened the door, and there's like 3 of them standing there like this. So I went in, and I sat down, and guys, I didn't know what I was going to say. What did you say? I'm sorry that I killed 20,000 babies. Sorry about that. I didn't know what to say. And I was crying so hard I couldn't even say anything. Finally, the only thing that I could even get out of my mouth was that I have been wrong and you have been right. And now I need your help. And they had every right to look at me and say, well, you know what, that's great, but you haven't really been nice to us over the past year. I mean, years I recall you turning on the sprinklers when we were out there, and you've said some nasty things to us, and so we'll help you, but you're gonna have to give us a big old fat apology. But you know what they didn't? They just looked at me and they just said, it's over. It's done. And I figure in my life here on earth, that may be the closest thing that I ever experienced to the scandalous grace that God gives us. So the next day, I told him, I can't leave unless I have another job. I can't do it. I've got to have income coming in. And they said, okay. So they started making phone calls. They started trying to get me a job. And the next day, I went and had lunch with one of the people that worked there. And when I left, I just said, you know what? I just can't do this anymore. I cannot go back. I cannot keep doing this. I cannot wait until I have another job. I just have to get out. And they said, okay. So, well, they said more than okay. But anyway, I went back to work that day. It was, I don't know, probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I wrote up a resignation letter, and I started to move 8 years of stuff out of my office quietly into my car. And so I was taking all this stuff, trying to sneak it out, and I finally put in my notice. I faxed it to the Human Resource Department, and I gave them like 5 minutes notice, and faxed that into them, and got in my car, and I okay, this is a funny story. Okay, so I had this bowl. When I was walking out to my car, it was like me. I'd already packed everything up. The last thing I had to take was me and this plastic bowl. And what was in the plastic bowl, Abby? Well, I'll tell you. So for 8 years, you know, these pro-lifers, would come out to our clinic, and they would place little miraculous medals in the flower bed. And every Monday, I would go out there, because it really got on my nerves. And so every Monday, I would go out there, and I would dig them out of the flower bed. And I didn't know what they were, but they looked nice, so I didn't want to throw them away. You know, they were kind of heavy. And so anyway, so I just started collecting them in a bowl in my office inside the abortion clinic. And I, you know, at first I had them in a little bowl, but then I had so many, I had to get a bigger bowl. So when I walked out, I had this big bowl and me. And I went to the car. I was like, I don't know what these are, but I worked hard for them. I'm keeping them. Abby, why did you become Catholic? So anyway, I walked out to my car, and a guy that worked for the pro-life group that I had gone to, he was out there because we didn't know what it was going to be like. You know, we didn't know if it was going to be trouble or anything, me leaving, and so he just wanted to be out there just to be a witness to make sure everything was okay. And so he was standing out there, and you know, I waved and said I'd be at their office tomorrow, and I got in my car, and I pulled out of that driveway for the last time, and I took a left. And he didn't know it. He didn't know that I could see him, but I looked up in my rearview mirror, and I saw this young man just fall to his knees with his arms in the air, because, y'all, they never thought that was going to happen. I mean, they probably believed that it was possible at first, but then I was there every day, and I was being promoted, and I was winning awards, and there had to be a part of him that just said, God, you're never going to save her, are you? You're just never going to get her out. And then he did. 3 weeks later, as Halloween, I was served papers by Planned Parenthood. They were taking me to court because Planned Parenthood believes that it is illegal to become pro-life. And it's not. Just in case there's any pro-choicers here today, you are legally fine to become pro-life. And so we went to court, and the judge threw it out because it was stupid. And they threw it out, and the thing was that when Planned Parenthood, when they took me to court, they sent out a press release to the Associated Press. And the press release said, you know, we are very sorry, we're very regretful that we're having to take our former director to court. We are concerned about confidentiality, and we're so concerned about it, here's her cell phone number just in case you want to talk to her. Not kidding. And so that night, the night that I got served and they sent out that press release, I got a phone call from a local reporter. And she said, you know, I got this press release. I didn't even know the press release had been sent out. And she said, I'd love to talk to you about it. And I said, okay. So it was funny because she had always interviewed me while I worked in Planned Parenthood, so now it was like this change. And so we sat down, and she asked me, why'd you leave? And I told her about the ultrasound and everything, and she was like, whoa. And so she said, well, it's going to be on the 10 o'clock news tonight. And I was like, this is so silly. So I told my mom, I said, look, I told my mom and dad, I said, look, it's going to be on the news. It's probably going to be like the last story, but just TiVo it, because that was when everybody had TiVo. And I said, just TiVo it, and, I'll watch it later. Well, when we got home, my husband turned the TV on. It was right at 10 o'clock. And he said, oh, well, we'll just keep it on here until we hear your name. And at 10 o'clock, right at 10 o'clock, it said, breaking news. And there was my face. And I was like, okay, we need to up the crime rate or something in this community, because if this is breaking news, this is really pathetic. And but that was it. That press release got picked up by the local news. That local news story got picked up by Fox News, ABC, CNN. And so thank you, Planned Parenthood, for giving me the opportunity to publicly speak against you in the way that I do. So anyway, a few years ago, we started, I started speaking and all of that, and I love it. I love what I do. It's such an honor to speak for the unborn and do this work. But about 3 years ago, I kept getting phone calls from people, from abortion clinic workers who were in the industry, and they wanted out, they wanted to leave. A lot of them had read my book, and they found some truth in it, and they wanted to get out. They didn't know what to do. And so my husband and I said, well, maybe we should start an organization for them, because I looked around and there was nothing for them. I mean, we've got all of these great groups out there that are, providing support. We've got, Students for Life. I mean, they're working on high school and college campuses. And same thing with survivors here in this area. They're working with youth. And, we've got hundreds of post-abortive ministries for women and now even men. And so all these things were taking place, and there was like nothing that was out there that was really proactively reaching into the abortion clinics and getting the workers out. And so I thought, I could do that. I don't know anything about starting a nonprofit, but I'll do that. And so we got something started. It was called And Then There Were None. And we thought, we were doing our strategic plan. I mean, it's kind of hard to do a budget when you don't have any money, but we were doing our strategic plan, and we thought, my husband and I thought, if we see 10 workers leave every year, that would be like, whoa, blow us out of the water, crazy amazing. Well, we've been at this for 3 years. We've had 180 abortion clinic workers leave the industry and come into the pro-life movement, and out of that 180, 6 of them are abortionists who put down their abortion instruments and now fight to defend life. So that's what I do now, that and have babies. The most important job. But, I'm here. I want to encourage you guys. I'm here as a testament that conversion is real, and that it happens. And it happens every day. We don't even see it all the time, but it happens. And that should be our prayer, right, as pro-lifers? Because it's not just to close down abortion clinics. That's not the end goal. I mean, if we defund Planned Parenthood, fantastic, but that's not my end goal. My end goal is to end abortion in this country. And how do we do that? Well, it's a paradigm shift. It's not just about closing abortion clinics. It's about getting into the hearts and minds of people who believe this is acceptable behavior in our society. It's about getting to our young people and saying, this is why you're pro-life. I was raised in a pro-life home, but I didn't know what that meant. I just said it because my parents said it. So when I was approached by a woman at Planned Parenthood in college and she started talking to me about all these wonderful things Planned Parenthood did, I didn't know any different. Because it was here, but it wasn't here. And I was so easily manipulated because I was so naive. And that's why it's important, parents, grandparents, whoever, if you're here, anybody who's here, if you have kids that you love, you need to train them up to be bold warriors for life. I have stay-at-home moms contact me and they say, Abby, I don't know what to do. I feel like, I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, what? You're doing it. You're probably doing the most important pro-life job because you're raising up little pro-lifers. And let me tell you something. My daughter, I'll brag on my daughter for a minute. So my daughter, Grace, is 8. And I mean, she's kind of weird because she hears about abortion all the time. But anyway, so she goes to a Catholic school. Thank you, Jesus. And you'll know why I said that in a minute. And they have show and tell. And my daughter likes to carry around a little fetal model with her all the time. And so she took one to show and tell. I didn't know that. So when I picked her up from school, her teacher, Jenna, this was in 2nd grade, and she said, well, I just want to let you know that Grace gave everybody an education today on fetal development and abortion. And I was like, oh, no. Like, do I need to start writing apology letters or what? And she was great. I mean, the teacher was like, no. Everything she said was absolutely in line with the Catholic Church. And if people have a problem with our Catholic education system teaching our kids the Catholic doctrine on issues of life, then they're the ones with the problem, not your kids. She said that she stood up in front of the class, and her teacher, Jenna, was like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have had this recorded. But she said she stood up and she held up this fetal model, and she said, does everybody know what this is? And they were like, no, because they couldn't really see the detail. And she's like, this is what a 12-week-old baby looks like inside of their mommy's tummy. Did you know that every single one of you look like this inside of your mommy's tummy when you were 12 weeks? And this is why abortion is evil. And then she went on to talk about how abortion kills babies and how, we have to speak up against abortion. Abortion is wrong. And I was just like, go Grace. No, I wasn't expecting that.